Now, due to the recent car climate and what's been going on social media with a certain Toyota Yaris GR, I thought I'd give Ian Litchfield a call and ask him to go and make a little film on his slightly tuned and breathed on Yaris GR. Now, this Yaris GR has got Nitron coilover suspension, which is two-way adjustable through 25 clicks, and at the moment we're sort of in the middle settings, so it's not as soft as it can be and it's not as hard as it can be. So if you wanted to go on track, you can click it up and dial it right up to really stiff, but for the UK roads you don't really want that, and I'm imagining, I haven't driven it on full soft, I'm imagining that's a little bit too soft. At the moment, to me, I haven't driven it either way, but at the moment it feels absolutely brilliant. It's still obviously sporty, this is a sporty car, but it is, I haven't hit the bump stops once. I'm on very, very nasty Cotswold roads that are bumpy, and yeah, we're you know, it feels really progressive and feels expensive, and it feels like it's managing the body of the car really, really well. This car has 300 horsepower and 290 foot-pounds of torque. It's got the stage 1 tuning kit on it from Litchfield, and it is so quick. It's got the same power as my Golf R Estate, and in a tiny, tiny little package with a tiny, tiny little footprint. It's absolutely wonderful. Goes round corners like it's on rails. The 4-wheel drive system just helps you out all the time. And listen to it, it's brilliant. The pedals are in exactly the right position for heel and toe. The 6-speed manual gearbox that's twinned to this little 1.6 litre 3-cylinder engine. I have been caught out a couple of times with it, going back down from 5th to 4th. I've missed it a couple of times. It's quite sort of bolt action rifle feeling. It can be quite tricky and you have to be quite positive with it. But it is, again, a driver's car, so it does feel like, you know, quite a manly gear shift, and it does work nicely, and it is good twin to this engine. It's just so nice to have a manual gearbox in a pure driver's car. The steering wheel in this little car, it's really thin, it's quite small and delicate, but there's a load of feedback coming through it. It's just a really fun little car. I absolutely doff my hat to Toyota for making this car, because what a great sense of humour. Who knew the Japanese had such a good sense of humour? But they seem to, because this car is absolutely brilliant fun to drive. It's not something I necessarily would want as an everyday car that I would do all of the things that I normally would do in, because you get in this car and immediately feel like you're being goaded on to drive it harder and harder and harder and harder, like you're on a rally stage in the WRC. It's got a little WRC badge down here, which is super cool and makes you remember where this is sort of coming from as a homologated special. It's just brilliant. The Michelin Sport 4S's that this car's on as well are so, so good. This weather out here at the moment, we're at 3 degrees C. It's been icy this morning, icy all morning. At no point have I felt like this is going to fall off the road. In race mode, in sport mode, in anything, it is absolutely stuck to the road like there's glue on the tyres. They are amazingly good. Through all the different modes, you can go into sport mode. Down here, you turn the little knob down here into sport mode. It all goes a little bit red, not completely red, and the response gets a little bit more, but not, you know, not vastly more. And then you could go over into track and it all gets a little bit louder and it all gets a little bit, you know, you've got loads of induction noise. I don't know if you can hear this. Listen to it. What a great little car, honestly. It's so much fun and it sounds brilliant. Now, Litchfield are just developing a exhaust for it, and that should be with us soon. They're also trying to crack the ECU to be able to put loads more power in it. This has just got a small tweak in it at the moment, so we've got the 300 horsepower over the normal 257, 260. And I can honestly say, even in this, guys, it's not necessarily wanting for more power, but it feels like the engine could be freed up a little bit more, which is, I think, what they're going to try and do. And yeah, I cannot speak highly enough of the suspension and the way they have set this up. I would like to feel it in the harder settings, and I would like to feel it in the softer settings. But I think for right now, I think this on UK roads, you know, the car's slower and the tyres haven't rubbed at all in the inside arches or anything when turning round. So it's really dialed in very, very well. Litchfield wouldn't give me the car if they didn't think it was really up to scratch. Now, the second you get in this car, it is just the Toyota Yaris. Let's be honest. Yes, there's a little dial down here that says track and sport and push for normal. Yes, there are certain little GR badges all over the shop. There are, you know, things in front of you when you put it into race mode. It goes all red and aggressive and says track and all that kind of stuff. That stuff's all great. But the materials, they are Toyota Yaris materials. Let's be honest. This here is ginormous, but it just looks like an Amstrad, you know, old thing from the sort of 90s. The seats, I was sort of expecting the seats to be a little bit more sporty. I don't know why, but I just was. They hold you nicely, but there's not much up the top. They're a little bit like a bath seats that you sort of fall out of a little bit if you're top heavy like this. I want a bit more support in these. I know that Litchfield are going to put different rails in these cars, and you can actually buy that to lower the seat in the car, because you do sit a little bit too high. I am in its lowest position at the moment, and I'm knee-high to a grasshopper, but I still want it to be a little bit lower. The steering wheel still comes nicely towards you, drops down so it's right in front of you, you feel really in control of the car, but yeah, I do want the seats to be lower in the car, so I feel a little bit more connected with it somehow. The dials, you know, after driving all the things like the M2 CS, if you haven't watched that film, go and watch it and subscribe whilst you're there and ring the little bell, it really helps us out. Whilst those bezels and all that kind of stuff in there are mega, in this car it looks like the dials from an old Clio. So what do we think of the looks of the Yaris? This one, to me, is extremely aggressive because it's obviously lower than the normal one. Listen to this great little, oh God, it's good fun. Whoa, crikey. See, this is a really bumpy piece of road, and in the normal Yaris, you feel like you're being chucked out the seat. In this one, it just rides the bumps way, way better. It just feels great. Oh, the front end is absolutely on point. It's bloody brilliant. But yeah, back to the way it looks. The way it looks, I think it's aggressive. The front end's aggressive. The rear end sits a little bit high, but I've thought that on all of them. The 14mm drop does rectify that little bit. The exhaust, it sounds brilliant, but there is a new exhaust coming from Litchfield. I honestly think if you've bought one of these, take it up to Litchfield. Get them to fettle it. Get them to put this 300 horsepower sort of bass tune on it and see what you think. And then if you want more, go back to them. They'll dial it right up as and when they can do that, as and when they've cracked the ECU. I mean, I don't know what people have done with these. I don't know how they bought them. Whether they bought them as a third car, as a second car, not the car they use every day. That's how I would look at it. But I think, you know, you could use one of these every day. It is a small hot hatch, but absolutely, well, hats off to Toyota for making such a special little hot hatch, like hot hatches of old. This is something that you would go out, you'd drive across Wales, you'd go out just to have a drive. That's literally the only reason you'd go out to drive it, just to have some fun. Yeah, get out there and bloody have a go. But be careful in it, because I tell you what, you could very easily lose your license in one of these. Full disclaimer, I haven't charged them, you know, 50 grand for this film. I did ask, but unfortunately they wouldn't give it to me. So I thought I'd do the film anyway, for nothing, because I'm lucky enough to do these films.